"You should come," Eleanor Vance says, her voice a silken blade slicing through the quiet afternoon air of the solarium. "Wear whatever you usually clean in." The words hang there, shimmering with casual cruelty, suspended in the shafts of sunlight that fall across the polished marble floor. Maya stands perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back, a posture of professional deference she has perfected over 2 years of working in this house. She feels the eyes of the 2 other women in the room, Eleanor's friends, draped in cashmere and judgment, settle upon her. They are watching a performance and she is the centerpiece. Eleanor holds out the object that precipitated the remark. It is an invitation, thick and heavy, the color of old gold. The cardstock gleams, its edges sharp and perfect, the calligraphy a swirl of ostentatious loops and flourishes. It feels less like paper and more like a minted bar, a piece of the Vance family's vast and untouchable treasury. Maya's gaze remains fixed on a point just over Eleanor's shoulder, a technique she uses to create distance, to remind herself that she is a ghost in this house, present but unseen. It usually works. Today it doesn't. Today Eleanor is dragging her out of the shadows and into the harsh, judging light. "Go on, take it," Eleanor urges, her smile tight and bright, a masterpiece of social aggression. She wiggles the invitation, the gesture a parody of generosity. "It's for the wedding of the season. My daughter, Clarissa, and Jonathan Sterling. You wouldn't want to miss it." The heat begins its slow, familiar creep up Maya's neck, blooming across her cheeks. She fights the urge to flinch, to lower her head. Dignity, she reminds herself, is a fortress built from small moments of control. She will not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She keeps her spine straight, her expression a careful, curated blankness. She is a statue of service, unmoving and silent. Would you endure this? To stand there, to be made a spectacle, a punchline for the bored and the wealthy. Her uniform, a simple, practical ensemble of black trousers and a crisp gray tunic, suddenly feels like a costume. It's a label, a definition that, in Eleanor's world, means she is not a person but a function. Someone who cleans, who serves, who remains invisible until summoned for amusement. Eleanor's suggestion that she wear it to the wedding isn't just an insult. It's a reinforcement of the rigid hierarchy that governs their lives. You are the help. Do not forget it. Slowly, deliberately, Maya unclasps her hands from behind her back. Her movements are fluid, economical, betraying none of the tremor she feels deep in her core. She extends her hand, not to snatch the invitation, but to receive it with the same quiet grace she would a discarded wine glass or a used napkin. Her fingers, clean but with calluses lining the pads from years of hard work, brush against Eleanor's perfectly manicured ones. The contact is brief, electric, a tiny collision of 2 separate universes. The invitation is heavier than she expected. The gold embossing of the Vance and Sterling family crests feels raised, like a scar on the paper. She holds it carefully by the edges as if it might tarnish at her touch. "Thank you, Mrs. Vance," she says. Her voice is low and even, a calm lake reflecting a stormy sky. She doesn't betray the anger, the humiliation, the sheer, bone-deep weariness of being constantly underestimated. She has trained her voice to be a tool, an instrument of calm that absorbs insults without echoing them back. Eleanor's smile falters for a fraction of a second, a flicker of disappointment that Maya did not provide the emotional reaction she was hoping for. There was no stammering, no blush of shame, no tearful retreat, just quiet, unshakable composure. "Of course," Eleanor says, recovering quickly and turning back to her friends. She dismisses Maya with a flick of her wrist, the conversation moving on to flower arrangements and the unacceptable price of imported orchids. The show is over. The maid has been put back in her place. Maya stands there for a moment longer, the invitation a hot brand in her hand. The sunlight catches the golden letters, making them dance. "Mr. and Mrs. Alistair Vance request the pleasure of your company." The words are a lie. They don't want her company. They want her as a prop, a living joke to tell their friends about later. "We even invited the maid. Can you imagine?" She gives a small, imperceptible nod, a signal of her departure that no one notices, and turns to leave the solarium. Her footsteps are silent on the marble. As she walks down the long, sun-bleached hallway, past portraits of Vance ancestors with cold, imperious eyes, she clutches the invitation tighter. It is a weapon meant to wound her, a symbol of her station. But as her fingers press into the sharp, gilded edges, a different thought, hard and clear as a diamond, begins to form in her mind. An invitation is an opportunity. A door, once opened, can be walked through. And sometimes, the person who walks through is not the person they were expecting. Maya's life in the Vance estate is a study in controlled invisibility. Her day begins before the sun rises, moving through the cavernous house like a tide, restoring order and silence. She straightens pillows, erases fingerprints from glass, and polishes surfaces until they reflect a world she can't touch. She is the ghost in the machine of their opulent lives, the unseen force that allows for seamless, effortless luxury. The family members drift past her without a glance, their voices floating over her head as if she were a piece of furniture. She is addressed as you, or with an impatient snap of the fingers. Her name is a forgotten currency. This morning, a junior housekeeper, new and nervous, watches as Maya arranges a bouquet of lilies in the grand foyer. Mrs. Vance says only she is to touch the fresh flowers, the young woman whispers, her eyes wide with the fear of breaking an unwritten rule. Maya pauses, her fingers gently coaxing a stubborn petal to unfurl. One of the stems was crushing the others, she replies softly, not looking up. They would have all been bruised by noon. She finishes the arrangement, creating a perfect cascade of white blooms. It is a small act of preemptive care, a correction no one will ever notice, which is precisely the point. To be good at her job is to erase all evidence of her work, and by extension, herself. On the small, tidy dresser in her modest room in the staff quarters, the golden invitation sits propped against a worn copy of the Law of Contracts. It looks alien there, a gaudy invader in her sanctuary of quiet order. At night, the single lamp on her nightstand catches its gilded edges, making it glimmer in the darkness. It is a constant, silent mockery. It doesn't just sit there, it presides, a monument to the morning's humiliation. Would you tolerate this? Having a symbol of your own debasement staring back at you in the one place you are supposed to feel safe. But there is one part of the house where Maya is not invisible. There is one person who sees her, Leo. He is 5 years old, a small, fragile boy with eyes that seem to hold the entirety of the world's anxieties. The Vances speak of him in hushed, frustrated tones. He's nonverbal. He has sensory issues. The specialists are baffled. They see him as a problem to be solved, a beautiful, broken heirloom that detracts from the family's perfect portrait. Maya sees a child who is drowning in a world that is too loud, too bright, too fast. She finds him late in the afternoon, tucked into the small, forgotten reading nook behind the library's spiral staircase. It is their spot. He is sitting on the floor, his small body rigid, his hands pressed over his ears. He is humming, a low, distressed sound that is more a vibration of pain than a melody. He doesn't have to see her to know she's there. She doesn't speak. Words are part of the noise that hurts him. Instead, she sits on the floor a few feet away, pulls a small, smooth river stone from her pocket, something she carries just for this purpose, and begins to slowly, rhythmically rub it along a wooden floorboard. The sound is soft, repetitive, a gentle, rhythmic shush-shush that cuts through the chaos in his head. Slowly, his humming subsides. He lowers his hands from his ears. He crawls the short distance between them and lays his head in her lap, his small body finally going lax. He does not speak her name. He doesn't have one for her. She is simply the place he goes to be safe. She gently strokes his hair, her touch light as a whisper. In this small, hidden corner of the mansion, she is not the help. She is an anchor. And no one, not even the Vances, has any idea she is the one keeping their son from being swept away. The breaking point arrives on a Thursday evening, 2 days before the wedding. The Vances are hosting a pre-nuptial dinner for an intimate gathering of 40 of their closest friends and business partners. The house hums with the high-frequency anxiety of performative perfection. Caterers swarm the kitchen, florists rush through the halls, and Aliner's voice, sharp and commanding, directs the symphony of orchestrated opulence. It is too much for Leo. The meltdown begins as a low whimper in the upstairs landing and escalates into a full-blown panic attack. His screams are thin and sharp, shards of glass tearing through the carefully curated atmosphere. Maya hears them from the laundry room in the basement, a visceral sound that bypasses her ears and lands directly in her chest. She finds him in his room. His parents, Alistair and a flustered Eleanor, are standing over him, their attempts to soothe him only making it worse. Alistair is trying to reason with him, his voice loud and strained. Eleanor is trying to physically restrain him, her touch frantic. "Leo, stop this. We have guests," she commands, her voice a tight wire of embarrassment and fury. The child is unreachable, lost in a storm of sensory overload. He has thrown his shoes and a lamp lies shattered on the floor. His therapist is on the phone, speaking of breathing exercises and weighted blankets, useless jargon against a hurricane of terror. Maya enters the room quietly, her presence going unnoticed for a full minute. She doesn't approach Leo. She doesn't speak. She simply stands in the doorway and begins to hum. It is an old melody, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, simple and low with no words to catch on. It is the sound of safety. Leo's frantic thrashing subsides. His screams soften into ragged sobs. He turns his head, his tear-filled eyes locking on her. He sees her. He sees his anchor. She takes a slow step into the room, then another. The Vances finally turn, their expressions a mixture of shock and annoyance at her intrusion. Maya keeps her eyes on the child. She kneels on the floor, ignoring the shards of the broken lamp, and continues to hum. Leo crawls into her arms, burying his face in her tunic, his small body trembling as the storm inside him finally passes. Alistair Vance clears his throat. "Well, that's effective," he says, as if commenting on a novel business strategy. Eleanor's expression is harder to read. There is a flicker of gratitude, quickly eclipsed by something colder, resentment. It is an affront that the maid could succeed where she, his mother, had failed so spectacularly. "Thank you," she says, the words clipped and sterile. "You may go now. We'll handle it from here." But they can't. The moment Maya tries to gently disengage, Leo's distress returns, a fresh wave of panic sobs. He clings to her, his little hands fisted in her uniform. In that moment, Maya understands. He needs her there, not just in the quiet corners of the house, but out there in the loud, frightening world they are about to drag him into. The wedding, with its crowds and cameras and crushing expectations, will be 1,000 times worse than this dinner. She looks up at Eleanor, her decision solidifying into resolve. It's no longer about their mockery or her pride. It is about this child. What would you do next? She would walk into the fire for him if she had to. Later that night, back in her room, she takes the golden invitation from her dresser. It no longer feels like an insult. It feels like a summons. She runs her thumb over the embossed crest, a declaration of war from a world that wants her to remain small. But she won't be going for them. She will be there for the one person who truly sees her. She will be his anchor in the storm. This is no longer their party. It's her mission. The day of the wedding arrives, a perfect, sun-drenched Saturday. The Sterling estate is a sprawling fantasy of green lawns and white marquees, a testament to old money and unassailable power. Guests drift across the grounds like characters in a novel, adorned in silk and jewels, their laughter light and effortless. Maya arrives not in her gray tunic, but in a simple, sleeveless black dress that falls just below the knee. It is a dress of impeccable cut and modest design, a garment that speaks of quiet confidence, not servitude. Her hair is pulled back in a sleek, low bun, and she wears no jewelry. She is an island of understated elegance in an ocean of extravagance. As she moves through the periphery of the crowd, she draws glances, not of recognition but of confusion. She does not fit the category of guest, nor does she fit the category of staff. She is an anomaly, and it makes people uncomfortable. She finds a quiet alcove near the back of the terrace, a vantage point from which she can observe without being drawn into conversation. From here, she has a clear view of the manicured gardens where the ceremony will take place, and she can keep an eye out for a small boy in a tiny tuxedo. It is here that she first hears the voice of Jonathan Sterling, Sr., the groom's father and the architect of his family's empire. He is holding court near a champagne fountain, a booming, self-congratulatory sound. The prenup is a work of art, he boasts to a small circle of men in bespoke suits. Bulletproof, protects the family assets into the next century. Young Jonathan can enjoy his marriage without a single financial worry. A short while later, two young men, clearly junior lawyers from a prestigious firm, stop near Maya's alcove, balancing plates of hors d'oeuvres. They speak in the hushed, conspiratorial tones of subordinates. "Did you see Section 7?" the first one asks. "The IP clause. I've never seen anything that aggressive." "It's predatory," the second one agrees, lowering his voice. "Tying her startup to marital asset forfeiture. If she leaves, he gets everything. Her company, her patents, all of it. I'm not even sure it's enforceable. It borders on unconscionable." "Borders on it," the first scoffs. "It pole vaults over the border, but it's Sterling's world. The optics of a young bride fighting a titan like him in court. She'd be ruined before discovery." Maya listens, her expression unchanging. But inside, her mind is racing, the legal terminology clicking into place like the tumblers of a complex lock. Unconscionable adhesion, punitive forfeiture, chilling effect. She visualizes the language of the clause, imagines the loopholes, the potential challenges, the specific precedents she would cite to dismantle it. She knows the exact case law they're referencing. She wrote a paper on it. Did you catch what she just did? Not with her hands, but with her mind. In the space of 30 seconds, she has assessed the situation, identified the legal flaw, and formulated a three-pronged strategy for challenging it. The work of a first-chair trial lawyer, all happening behind the placid mask of a woman who is supposed to be invisible. The second lawyer glances over and notices her. He sees the simple black dress, the dark skin, the quiet stillness. He nudges his colleague, a smirk playing on his lips. "Guess we know who'll be cleaning up after this is all over," he mutters, just loud enough for her to hear. They laugh and walk away, leaving Maya in the alcove. She doesn't react. She simply watches them go, her mind calm and clear. They think they know what she is. They have no idea what she knows. The reception is a sensory assault. A string quartet battles with the chatter of 300 guests. Champagne flows in a ceaseless golden river, and the air is thick with expensive perfume. For Maya, it is manageable. For Leo, it is a nightmare. She sees him near the towering, 7-tiered wedding cake, his small hand lost in his mother's grip. Clarissa, the bride, is radiant but distracted, caught in a whirlwind of congratulations. Leo's face is pale, his eyes wide and unfocused. He wears a miniature tuxedo that looks stiff and suffocating. His shoulders are hunched, his whole body a knot of tension. He is close to the edge. Maya feels a familiar ache of protective instinct. She remains in her alcove, knowing that to approach him would be to invite Alina's wrath. She can only watch, a silent guardian he cannot see. The moment comes when a well-meaning guest leans down, her voice a high-pitched coo, and tries to pinch Leo's cheek. It is the final straw. The touch, the sound, the proximity, it shatters his fragile composure. He rips his hand away from his mother's, a small, choked sob escaping his lips, and he runs. Not to his father, who stands talking with a group of businessmen, not to his grandparents. He runs with the unerring, desperate instinct of a child seeking true safety. The crowd instinctively parts for the small, fleeing figure. Whispers follow him like a wake. Clarissa calls his name, her voice laced with panic. But Leo doesn't hear her. He is focused on one thing, one person. He barrels into Maya's alcove and collides with her, burying his face in the fabric of her black dress. His small body is racked with silent, terrified sobs. He doesn't make a sound, but the force of his fear travels up through her, a visceral shockwave. Instinct takes over. Maya immediately kneels, her body creating a shield around him, blocking him from the prying eyes of the wedding guests. She doesn't speak. She simply holds him, one hand firm and steady on his back, the other gently stroking his hair. She begins to hum her low, calming lullaby, the melody a secret language only they understand. Her own heart rate is a steady, slow rhythm, and she wills him to match it, to borrow her calm. The moment stretches. The whispers from the crowd grow louder. This is not just a child having a tantrum, this is a public declaration. In a room full of his own family, the maid is his safe harbor. Several guests have a clear view of the scene. Clarissa stands frozen a few feet away, her face a canvas of confusion, shame, and a dawning, painful understanding. And across the terrace, Jonathan Sterling SR watches the entire exchange. His jovial mask is gone, replaced by a look of sharp, calculating assessment. He sees his distraught grandson, the frantic bride, and the unknown woman in the black dress who, with a simple touch and a quiet sound, has brought an instant, impossible peace. He doesn't see a maid. He sees leverage. He sees a complication. He sees a power he doesn't understand and therefore cannot control. If you were there, would you step closer or stay silent? Most guests simply stare, turning the intimate moment of comfort into a spectacle. They see the what, but they have no context for the why. To them, it is a curious piece of drama. To Maya, holding the trembling child, it is the entire world. The incident acts as a catalyst. Clarissa, the bride, can no longer ignore the evidence before her eyes. The sight of her son, her own child, finding solace not with her but with a woman she barely knows, has cracked the perfect facade of her life. The fear that had been a whisper is now a roar. She finds Meyer a half-hour later, after Leo has been calmed and whisked away by a nanny. Meyer is standing by a service entrance, preparing to leave, knowing her presence is a liability. "Wait," Clarissa says, her voice strained. Her elaborate wedding gown looks like a cage. "Please." Maya turns, her expression carefully neutral. "He only does that with you," Clarissa whispers, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He never lets me hold him like that." Not anymore. The confession hangs between them, raw and painful. "They told me I was imagining it. My mother, she said you were overstepping." Maya remains silent, allowing the bride to fill the space with her own fears. "The lawyers you were listening to earlier," Clarissa continues, her voice dropping lower. "And the way Mr. Sterling talks about the prenup. He sounds so proud of it, but when I asked my own lawyer to explain it, he was so vague." She takes a shaky breath, the question she's been terrified to ask finally surfacing. "They say I won't get a cent if I leave him, but it's more than that, isn't it? I saw your face when you were listening to them." This is the moment of choice. Maya could offer a few placating words and walk away. She could protect herself, her job, her quiet life, or she could tell the truth. Looking at the genuine terror in the young bride's eyes, she knows she can't leave her defenseless. "Do you have it with you?" Maya asks softly. Clarissa nods, pulling a folded sheaf of papers from a small, beaded purse. The document is thick, imposing. Maya takes it, her hand steady. She flips through the pages, her eyes scanning the dense blocks of text with an unnerving speed and focus. She doesn't need to search for it. She knows exactly what she's looking for. She stops at the 7th page. "Here," she says, her finger tapping a specific paragraph. "Section 7, line 4. She angles the document so Clarissa can see. This is the part everyone overlooks. It's called an intellectual property assignment clause, but it's disguised as a standard asset declaration. Maya's voice changes. The quiet deference of the maid is gone, replaced by the crisp, analytical precision of a lawyer. It states that any and all intellectual property developed by either party during the period of official engagement is considered a shared marital asset, subject to the forfeiture terms of the agreement. Clarissa looks confused. "My startup? I founded that 2 years ago, a year before we were engaged." "Exactly," Maya says, her eyes sharp. "But you filed for 2 new patents 3 months ago, during the engagement. This clause links the entire company, past, present, and future, to those new patents. It recategorizes your whole business as a marital asset." The language is deliberately convoluted. It's a trap. Have you seen a rule used like a weapon? This one is designed to disarm you completely. She looks directly at Clarissa, her voice softening slightly. "If you sign this and this marriage ends, Mr. Sterling won't just keep the family money. He will own your company, your ideas, your future, everything. You won't just leave with nothing. You'll leave in debt to him." The blood drains from Clarissa's face. The vague fear has been given a name and a shape, and the reality is more monstrous than she could have imagined. She stares at Maya, at this woman who cleans her mother's floors, who has just dismantled a multi-million-dollar legal trap in a service corridor with the calm authority of a seasoned litigator. Who are you?" Clarissa breathes. Before Maya can answer, a cold voice cuts through the air. "What is going on here?" Billionaire Vance stands at the end of the hall, her face a mask of glacial fury. Billionaire advances down the corridor, her heels clicking on the tile like tiny, angry hammers. Her eyes are not on her daughter but fixed on Maya, a look of pure, unadulterated venom. "I knew it," she says, her voice low and dangerous. "I knew you were a manipulative little schemer. What did you say to her?" She snatches the prenup from Maya's hand, clutching it to her chest as if protecting it from contamination. "Mother, she was just explaining," Clarissa begins, her voice trembling. "Explaining what?" Alina retorts, not taking her eyes off Maya. "Her place. Because it certainly isn't here, poisoning my daughter's mind with paranoid fantasies on her wedding day. You are a maid. You serve drinks and you clean floors. You do not offer legal counsel." The words are meant to cut, to shrink Maya back into the box they built for her. Maya stands her ground, her face calm, her posture unshaken. She meets Alina's glare without flinching, and her silence seems to infuriate the older woman even more. "I want you out of here," Alina hisses. "Not just off the property, out of my house. I want you gone by morning. Your things will be packed and left on the curb. You are fired." Clarissa gasps. "Mother, you can't. She was helping me." "She was interfering," Alina snaps. She turns to her daughter, her voice softening into a tone of patronizing sympathy. "Darling, you are overwrought. The stress of the day. This person is taking advantage of your emotional state. The Sterlings are a good family. Their lawyers are the best in the world. They are here to protect you, to protect us." The appeal to family, to status, to the established order of their world is a powerful weapon. Clarissa looks from her mother's resolute face to Maya's quiet, waiting one. She sees the chasm between two worlds and she is terrified to leap. She is a product of this system, and the thought of defying it, of dismantling her own wedding based on the word of a maid, is unthinkable. She hesitates, and in her hesitation, the battle is lost. "Go to your husband, Clarissa," Alina commands softly. "Enjoy your party." Clarissa looks at Maya, her eyes pleading for an understanding Maya cannot give. Then she turns and walks away, leaving Maya alone to face her mother's wrath. Alina gestures to a pair of burly security guards who have materialized at the end of the hall. "Please escort this woman off the premises. She is no longer welcome here." The guards approach, their faces impassive. They don't touch her, but their presence is an undeniable force, boxing her in. What would you sacrifice to stay true? Maya had sacrificed her job, her security, her home. And for what? For a warning that was ultimately ignored. As they walk her toward the service exit, past the clatter of the kitchens and the oblivious laughter of the guests, she feels a profound sense of isolation. She spoke the truth, and the system pushed back, ejecting her like a foreign object. They had not only fired her, they had erased her. She was once again invisible, but this time it was not by choice. As the heavy steel door closed behind her, plunging her into the cool, dark night, she felt a chilling certainty. She had failed. The trap was still set, and the bride was walking right into it. Maya doesn't go home. She can't. The image of Clarissa's terrified face is burned into her mind. She spends the night in a small 24-hour cafe, nursing a single cup of tea, the prenup's predatory language replaying in her head. She knows she cannot force Clarissa to act, but she also cannot abandon her. Justice, she knows, is not always about winning. Sometimes, it is simply about being there to witness the truth when it finally decides to reveal itself. The next morning, she returns to the Sterling estate. She doesn't use the service entrance. She walks through the main gates, her simple black dress a stark contrast to the finery of the wedding guests just beginning to arrive for the ceremony. She buys a ticket, a charity donation for access to the public gardens, and finds a place on a stone bench far from the aisle, partially hidden by a large, ornate fountain. She is just another face in the crowd, a witness. The ceremony begins. The music swells. The bride on her father's arm is a vision in white, but Maya can see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. Her eyes scan the crowd, and for a fleeting moment, Maya thinks Clarissa is looking for her. But her gaze passes over Maya's bench without recognition. The officiant's voice booms through the sound system, speaking of love and union. Then comes the moment Maya has been waiting for. "And now," the officiant announces with a warm smile, as a symbol of their commitment not just to each other, but to the union of their two great families, Jonathan and Clarissa will read affirmations from the legal covenant that will bind them. It is a tradition among the elite, a public declaration of the financial realities of the marriage, spun as a testament to their practicality and trust. A performance. Jonathan reads his part, a boilerplate statement about mutual respect and asset protection. Then it is Clarissa's turn. The officiant hands her a card. Maya sees her hands shake as she takes it. She begins to read. Her voice is a thin, reedy thing. I, Clarissa, acknowledge the terms laid forth in Section 7, which defines the disposition of all assets, tangible and intangible, including those of intellectual property. She falters on the last words. She looks up, her eyes wide and panicked, and they land directly on Jonathan Sterling, SR, sitting in the front row. He gives her a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of encouragement that looks more like a command. A smug, proprietary smile is fixed on his face. In that instant, Clarissa sees it all, the truth of Maya's warning, the cold, hard reality of the cage she is about to enter. The words on the card blur. The faces of the crowd seem to recede. The world tilts on its axis. Her breath catches in her throat. She sways. And then, with a soft sigh, she collapses at the altar, a heap of white lace and shattered illusions. Pandemonium erupts. Guests gasp and rise to their feet. Alina shrieks. Alastair rushes forward. But louder than all of it is another sound, a high, piercing wail of pure terror. Leo, seeing his mother fall, begins to scream. It is not a child's cry, but a primal sound of a world breaking apart. The chaos is absolute. The perfectly orchestrated event has shattered into a million pieces. From her bench by the fountain, Maya stands up. The time for witnessing is over. This is where everything could flip. The system has failed, its carefully constructed lies collapsing under their own weight. And into that vacuum, the truth is about to walk. A figure moves through the chaos with a calm, magnetic purpose. It is Maya. She doesn't run. Her pace is measured, deliberate, drawing the eyes of the panicked guests. She walks up the side of the aisle, a river of stillness in a flood of hysteria. She ignores the fallen bride. She ignores the frantic parents and the stunned groom. Her focus is singular. She walks directly to the source of the most desperate sound, the small, screaming child. Leo is being held by his grandfather, Alastair, who is trying to restrain and shush him at the same time, an act that only fuels the boy's terror. Maya reaches them and kneels, bringing herself to Leo's level. She doesn't try to take him. She simply holds out her hand, palm up. "Leo," she says, her voice quiet but clear, somehow cutting through the noise. "I'm here. Breathe with me." She takes a slow, deep breath and then another. Leo's screams falter, his wild eyes locking onto her face. He sees his anchor. The screaming stops. He lunges from his grandfather's arms and into hers, burying his face in her shoulder, his small body shuddering with the aftermath of the storm. The sudden, shocking silence that follows is more profound than the noise it replaced. Every eye is on the maid and the child. Holding Leo with one arm, Maya stands. She turns to the stunned families at the altar. Jonathan Sterling, SR, is the first to find his voice. "Security," he barks. "Get her out of here." Maya meets his gaze, her own eyes blazing with a cold fire he has never seen. "Your security is not needed, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice amplified by the officiant's microphone, which she plucks from its stand with her free hand. The authority in her tone is absolute. It stops the guards in their tracks. "My name is Maya Lathan," she announces, her voice ringing out across the silent garden. "I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law School, where my thesis on unconscionable adhesion contracts and pre-nuptial agreements won the Howard P. Merrick Award." A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. This is not the maid. This is someone else entirely. She turns to the pale-faced officiant. "Please read that clause again. Section 7, line 4, the part about intellectual property." The flustered man reads the convoluted sentence, his voice trembling. When he finishes, Maya nods. She shifts Leo to her hip, as if holding the child gives her even more strength. "Pacta sunt servanda," she says, the Latin words crisp and perfect. A common principle. Agreements must be kept. However, the courts have long recognized that this principle does not apply to contracts of adhesion where one party has no meaningful power to negotiate, and where the terms are so egregiously one-sided as to shock the conscience. Did you feel that shift? It was the sound of a world turning upside down. "This clause," she continues, her voice resonating with power, looking directly at a now ashen-faced Mr. Sterling, "is not designed to protect your family's assets. It is designed to seize them from a young entrepreneur. It is a predatory instrument disguised as a legal document. It is, in the simplest terms, theft. and it is utterly, shamefully unenforceable. She pauses, letting the weight of her words settle over the stunned audience. The flash of cameras is incessant. The wedding has become a trial, and she is the prosecution, judge, and star witness, all in one. The help has become the authority. The invisible woman has become the only person in the room everyone can see. The silence that follows Maya's declaration is a living thing, thick with shock, and the frantic calculations of reputations being destroyed in real time. The wedding is over. The union is dead before it ever began. Maya's first move is not one of triumph. She hands the microphone back to the stunned officiant, walks to the altar, and helps a trembling Clarissa to her feet. The bride clings to her, a silent admission of everything she had been too afraid to believe. Shielding her from the popping flashbulbs, Maya leads Clarissa away from the spectacle, down the aisle now littered with discarded flower petals, a path of retreat from a life that almost was. In a quiet anteroom, as Clarissa's father fusses over her, Jonathan Sterling SR storms in. His face is a thundercloud of fury and disbelief. This was to be his masterstroke, the merger of two dynasties, secured by his own clever cruelty. Now it is all in ruins, broadcast to the world by his son's Maid. "What do you want?" he demands, his voice a low growl. He thinks this is a negotiation, a shakedown. He is accustomed to problems that can be solved with money. A settlement, a job, name your price. Maya turns from Clarissa to face him. Leo is now by her side, his small hand clutching hers, his eyes fixed on the angry man. Maya doesn't look at Sterling with hatred or triumph. She looks at him with a profound, disarming pity. She doesn't answer his question directly. Instead, she gestures with her head toward Leo. "Look at him, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice devoid of accusation, a simple statement of fact. "Look at your grandson." He spent the first 5 years of his life in a world so loud and frightening he chose to be silent. The only thing he has ever needed is a safe harbor. She then meets Sterling's eyes, and her gaze is unwavering. "What do I want?" She repeats his question, the words now imbued with a different meaning. "I want you to stop seeing your family as assets to be managed and liabilities to be contained. I want you to build something that protects people, instead of trapping them. I want your grandson to grow up in a home, not a boardroom." Her request is so unexpected, so completely outside the realm of blackmail or revenge, that it momentarily disarms him. She isn't asking for money or power for herself. She is demanding a fundamental change in him, a recalibration of his entire worldview. She is asking for his humanity. What does real justice look like here? It is not the public humiliation of one powerful man. It is the quiet, systemic dismantling of the mindset that allowed him to believe he could own another person's future. It is justice that heals, not justice that punishes. Sterling stares at her, speechless. For the first time in decades, he has been confronted with a problem that his checkbook cannot solve. He looks at his grandson, truly looks at him, and sees not a flawed heir, but a terrified child who trusts the fired Maid more than anyone in his own bloodline. The foundation of his world has cracked, and through that crack, a sliver of unwelcome light is pouring in. The Sterling Vance wedding becomes a legend among the elite, a cautionary tale whispered at cocktail parties and dissected in gossip columns. But beneath the scandal, something more meaningful is taking root. 3 months later, a press release announces the formation of a new nonprofit, the Lathan Vance Foundation for Contractual Equity. The name itself is a quiet revolution. Lathan, the name of the Maid, is given top billing over Vance, the name of her former employer. It is a public acknowledgement of where the true power and vision now lie. The foundation is housed not in a sterile corporate tower, but in a beautifully restored brownstone with large windows and warm, inviting interiors. Its mission, drafted by Maya herself in her new role as executive director and lead counsel, is clear and radical: to provide pro bono legal services to any individual presented with a domestic contract, prenuptial, cohabitation, or otherwise, that contains coercive, punitive, or unconscionable clauses. They are not just a review board. They are a litigation firm for the legally outgunned. The systemic change is specific and measurable. Their charter includes the Lathan Clause mandate: a policy that actively petitions state family courts to adopt clearer, stricter standards for financial and intellectual property disclosures in prenuptial agreements. They create educational materials, host free workshops, and build a public database of predatory clauses to watch out for. And who is the primary funder? Jonathan Sterling, Sr. True to the demand Maya made of him in the ruins of his son's wedding, he has channeled his formidable resources into the very instrument designed to prevent men like him from ever exploiting their power in the same way again. It is not an act of pure altruism. It is a public penance, a desperate attempt to salvage a legacy, and perhaps to earn the trust of the grandson who still flinches when he enters a room. Clarissa, having left her fiancé and reasserted control over her now thriving startup, serves as the foundation's board chair, her alliance with Maya forged in fire and now solidified in purpose. Maya has not just won a battle, she has rewritten the rules of engagement. The foundation becomes a shield for countless people who, like Clarissa, were on the verge of signing their futures away. The change is not a vague promise. It is a named policy, an enforced mandate, a new reality. The path to this kind of harm is not gone, but it is narrower, brighter, and far more difficult to tread. Would this change be enough in your workplace? For the women who walk through the Foundation's doors every day, it is everything. The Foundation's offices are designed with light and air, a deliberate contrast to the stuffy, intimidating law firms that line the city's financial district. There is a small, soundproof play area filled with soft cushions and wooden toys, a feature Maya insisted upon. It is here that she finds her own quiet moments of peace. One afternoon, weeks after the Foundation's hectic launch, she is sitting on the floor of the play area, a thick legal brief open beside her. Leo is with her. He has become a regular visitor, often accompanying Clarissa to board meetings. He is a different child now. The constant, vibrating anxiety has receded, replaced by a quiet curiosity. He speaks, not in a torrent of words, but in short, considered sentences that land with the weight of careful thought. He sits at a small table, concentrating on a drawing, his crayons moving with intense focus. The silence between them is comfortable, a shared space of calm. Finally, he finishes. He slides off his little chair and walks over to Maya, holding the drawing out to her. It is a child's masterpiece of stick figures. On the left is a figure with long blonde hair labeled Mom. On the right, a smaller figure labeled Leo. And in the middle, holding both their hands, is a figure with dark, coiled hair labeled Maya. Over their heads he has drawn a huge, smiling yellow sun. "This is my family," he says, his voice clear and proud. Maya looks at the drawing, and a warmth spreads through her chest, a profound sense of arrival that no court victory, no newspaper headline, no public acknowledgement could ever provide. The label Eleanor Vance had tried to brand her with Maid, schemer, the help has been erased, overwritten by this child's simple, powerful truth. Family, anchor, safe harbor. She looks at Leo, and her eyes well with tears she refuses to let fall. She simply smiles, a genuine, unguarded expression of joy. "It's beautiful, Leo," she says softly. "Thank you." He beams at her, his validation complete. This is her healing. It is not the applause of the crowd or the grudging respect of her enemies. It is the quiet, unconditional acceptance of a child she helped lead out of the silence. It is the restoration of her name, spoken by a boy who, for so long, had no words at all. Whose voice helped you heal when no one clapped. For Maya, it was the smallest one in the room. The official launch of the Lathan Vance Foundation is a press event, a necessary performance for donors and media. The room is filled with the city's influential, many of whom were guests at the disastrous wedding. They are here out of curiosity, eager to see the next chapter of the story. Jonathan Sterling, Sr. is in the front row, looking aged but composed. Eleanor Vance is conspicuously absent. When Clarissa takes the podium, a hush falls over the room. Everyone expects a dramatic retelling, a story of a damsel in distress and a savior in disguise. Clarissa, poised and confident, gives them something else entirely. "Many of you are here because you've heard a story," she begins, her voice steady and strong. "A story about a wedding and a maid and a dramatic revelation. I'm here to tell you that story is fundamentally wrong." A murmur ripples through the audience. The person who changed my life was not a maid who happened to be a lawyer. She was a lawyer who, due to circumstances many in this country face, was working as a maid. The distinction is crucial. She looks toward the side of the stage, where Maya stands, listening. Our work at this foundation is made possible by the sharpest legal mind I have ever encountered. Maya Lathan saw a trap hidden in plain sight, not because she is a hero from a fairy tale, but because she is a deeply competent, meticulously trained, and profoundly observant lawyer. She saw the flaw in that contract for the same reason a master carpenter sees a flaw in a joint, or a great doctor sees a symptom others miss. It is the result of discipline, intelligence, and years of dedicated study. Clarissa's speech is not about an emotional rescue. It is a public testament to professional excellence. Maya reminds us that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. She reminds us that the person cleaning your office, serving your coffee, or caring for your child may possess a mind and a set of skills that could save your company, or in my case, save your life. The failure was not hers for being unseen. The failure was ours for not looking. When she finishes, the applause is not the polite clapping of a charity event. It is a genuine, rolling wave of respect. It is for Maya, but it is not directed at a savior. It is directed at a professional. The recognition is specific, earned, and centered entirely on her competence. Recognition done right. Agree. It elevates the skill, not the spectacle, and in doing so, it gives Maya back the one thing that had been taken from her, her professional identity. The lobby of the Lathan Vance Foundation is a space designed to communicate safety and dignity. The walls are a soft, calming blue. The furniture is comfortable. The art is chosen to be soothing. But the focal point, the first thing every visitor sees, is a simple, elegant display case mounted on the main wall. Inside, resting on a bed of dark velvet, is the golden invitation. It is lit by a single, soft spotlight. It looks less like a piece of stationery and more like a historical artifact, a relic from a bygone era. There is no dramatic story accompanying it, no mention of the cruel words with which it was delivered. There is only a small brass plaque beneath it. The plaque reads, "Every invitation is a threshold. It is up to us to decide who we are when we cross it." The meaning of the object has been completely transformed. What was once a weapon of humiliation is now a symbol of purpose. It is no longer Billionaire Vance's insult. It is the origin story of the foundation itself. For the women who walk through these doors, women who have been handed their own gilded traps, the invitation is not a reminder of shame, but a promise of resilience. It tells them that the very thing meant to belittle them can become the catalyst for their liberation. Maya often finds herself pausing in front of the display case at the end of a long day. She looks at the elegant script, the embossed crests, the shimmering gold. She no longer feels the sting of the memory. The heat of that long-ago humiliation has cooled, reforged into the quiet, steady strength of her new reality. The invitation is a reminder not of who they thought she was, but of who she chose to become. It was a dare, and she answered it. Did the object's meaning change for you too? It is no longer just a piece of paper. It is a map that shows the distance between being dismissed and being essential. The final scene is not set in a courtroom or at a gala. There are no cameras, no applause. It is a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the foundation's waiting area. The space is filled with gentle sunlight. Maya is sitting on a low, comfortable sofa, a formidable-looking law book open on her lap. But she is not reading it. Beside her, tucked against her side, is Leo. He is 6 now, and he is quietly reading a picture book about a brave knight who rescues a village not by fighting a dragon, but by building a better bridge. Across the room, a young woman, a new client, sits nervously, clutching a thick manila envelope. Her own young daughter plays on the floor nearby with a set of wooden blocks. The woman keeps glancing at Maya, her expression a mixture of awe and apprehension. She is here because she has heard the story, and she is not sure she can believe it. Maya looks up from her book, her eyes meeting the new client's. She offers the woman a small, calm, and deeply reassuring smile. It is a smile that says, "I see you. You are safe here. We will build a better bridge." The woman visibly relaxes, a knot of tension she'd been holding for months finally beginning to unwind. This is Maya's legacy. It is not a single, dramatic victory. It is the creation of this quiet, safe space. It is the seamless integration of her elite legal mind with her profound capacity for care. She is both the formidable lawyer who can dismantle a predatory contract and the gentle anchor who can calm a frightened child. In her world, these two identities are not separate, they are the same. The room is peaceful. A top-tier lawyer sits beside a thriving child, while a vulnerable woman and her daughter find a moment of peace. The system of this small room has been changed because she is in it. Her presence is a quiet promise that here, at least, no one will be invisible. How many brilliant minds are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right door to open?